I'm Elmer, middle name Orr, named after my dad's baby brother. Of course, Turnbough, born December the 29th, 1927, a little community called Davisville, Missouri, in Crawford County. My dad's name is Irvin Austin Turnbough, and my mother was Rosa Allen Tinker, and they were married in 1913, I believe. I've got their marriage license, and in 1915 they had their first child. When they got married, my dad was 22 and my mother was 26. She was born in 1888. My dad was born in 1992. Not 1918 and 92. And their first baby was a boy. They named him Finest. I don't remember what his first name was. And he died as a baby. And he's buried in the Sellers Cemetery. I go there and put flowers on his grave once a year now. I didn't know where he's at for many years. And he was born in 1915. And then their next child was a boy named Noe Edward. He was born on October 21st of 1917. And then in October the 23rd of 1919, they had another child, their first and oldest daughter, named Gladine. And then in 1921, they had another daughter born named Dorothy Xmas or Christmas. And in 1923, they had another girl named Dolly Mae. And Dolly got killed in a car accident in her senior year in high school in 1943. And then I came along next. And then the last one was John, who was born March 24, 1931. So that was 7 children that my mother and dad have. We were all born at home, as most babies were at that time, particularly in the country. A lady that was a relation to my mother, on my mother's side, her name was Dilly Dilliam, Dilliam, and I think I'm like a second cousin to her, something like that. And she delivered many, many, many babies. And when a woman mother-to-be would start having labor pains or getting close, a lot of people, my dad, they'd take a horse and go in the country maybe and bring the midwife to the home, you know, for the child to be born, and like that. And so I was born in a place way up on the ridge in that, and not long after I was born, Dad sold that place and bought the upper farm of my grandpa. My grandpa Turnbough was named James Azaro, and my grandmother was Harriot, and she was about half, 2/3 Cherokee Indian. Her maiden name was Jarvis, and they lived just across the creek from us when we were growing up in that. Wonderful, dedicated people. My grandmother made some kind of a cake. She put sugar on it some way, and she'd like to go eat her cake. They had a nice, in those days, a lot of people had a fireplace. That's how they heated and everything. Of course, cooked with a wood stove and everything. And my grandmother died when I was about 10 years old. And my grandfather died, he was 81 years old, and I think I was 14 years old. After Grandma died, my dad's sister, Uncle Don and Mammy Payne, lived on the low end. My grandpa had a lot of land and rented out and sold a lot of it. My mom and dad had bought the upper end of the farm, so my grandpa stayed at home during the daytime, but he would come. One night he'd come to our house, stayed all night. They didn't want him to be by himself, and then the next night he would go down and eat Miami's as every other like that. And everything worked out real well. Grandpa was quite a farmer, but he was a lay speaker and he knew his Bible. And had a big black horse named Tommy in a big saddle. On the weekend, on Saturday evening, you'd see Grandpa might have bibbed overalls or a blue serge coat and wear a tie, but he'd get on old Tommy and go somewhere and preach the next morning, He'd have his Bible in the saddlebag, and like that. And I could see Grandpa get today, coming by, he'd stop and talk a while, he'd tell us where he's going. Those days, a lot of preachers, some of them, they called them half-time or quarter-time, like they'd go one church one weekend, another one, and that sort of thing, because there wasn't enough ministers to go around. He wasn't an ordained minister, but he really studied the Bible and was known as a man who knew his Bible. When the Pentecostal people started coming into our community, they had a brush arbor meeting. And when the Assemblies of God were just getting started, and they preached a lot against tobacco, things of this nature. I remember my grandpa, they had preached that nobody should use tobacco, that a horse wouldn't even eat tobacco. And Grandpa, he was a United Methodist, really strong in his faith. Of course, they really preached the word in those days. I hope still do. And Grandpa heard about this. So they used to have a lot of Bible debates, And Grandpa wanted to debate the Pentecost preacher. And they met and debated. And Grandpa, to use a gambler's expression, had an ace in the hole. So that was their subject about tobacco. And my grandpa smoked some. I can see him now. When he got older, sometimes the little pipe kind of shaking. And what Grandpa used, my dad had a mare. He had got to the western, he brought a lot of wild western horses into the area. And this mare, my dad raised tobacco in the back of the barn, just enough for their own use. A lot of people did. My dad chewed some tobacco back that time. And that mare got in there and ate my dad's tobacco. So they debated this, and of course the other side couldn't show him specifically anything in the Bible directly against tobacco, for a person to use it in that. And so I was just a kid, but for some reason other things like that would stand out with me. And Grandpa was using a walking cane, but this time he'd make it point with that walking cane. And so he said they got him stirred up a little bit, and he was pretty calm, but he got him stirred up a little bit. He said, "You all lied about this tobacco. You said a horse wouldn't eat it." And he had that witness that his horse had got in the tobacco patch and ate the tobacco, and that. But he was a very dedicated man. My dad followed his dad's teaching. After Dad became a Christian, I told him he would have made a good Jew, and he said, "Why, son?" I said, "You raised us by the 10 Commandments," and that. And everybody respected my grandpa very highly, because I remember I was 14. I remember his funeral really well. Of course, they laid out people in the home. I remember being at the grandpa's house overnight and that, and then I remember all the family coming home and everything. Dad had 6 or 7 brothers and sisters and their family. It was a big crowd. And leaving from the house to go to our cemetery to bury him and everything, and I still go to his grave quite often. I'm about the only one that puts any flowers up there. But And my dad tried to live like his dad, you know. And I didn't know where my dad was getting all this when he tell us boys, if you owe somebody, you pay them. If you give your word's your bond. And if you tell somebody you're going to meet them, he'd point up and say something could happen. Only the good Lord knows. But you let them know whenever you can. Of course, in those days, we didn't have communication like we do today, you know. He said, let them know, because that'll save your word. Things can happen. I didn't know where Dad was getting all of this. He would use to back that all up, but I learned later, after I became a Christian and that, and why it took that long, he was quoting right out of the book of James, chapter 4, verses 13 and 14, boast not thyself of another day, thou knowest not what another day may bring forth, or what is life, even the vapor that appeareth a little while and then vanisheth away. And that's where he's getting all the way. You know, only God knows, of course, what another day, another time is going to bring forth. During the Depression, I was born during Calvin Coolidge years, and then in 28, Herbert Hoover was elected. Of course, the big Dilly Depression hit during his 4 years. President Roosevelt was elected in 1932, and I guess he's the only president that's ever been elected to 3 terms. And then Harry Truman, they called him the little man from Missouri. He would get mad and curse. He called himself a Baptist, but still yet today, people will tell you that Harry Truman will tell you the truth, and they knew when he said something, and he was elected, because he took over the vice president and was elected twice. And then, of course, 1952, Dilly Eisenhower became the first time a president had been, a Republican had been elected since Hoover, because of the, but President Roosevelt, I wish it could be this way today, but they were friends, and he chose Hoover during his, and Hoover was one who, over the relief program to help poor people in that, and they worked together and pulled our country out of that, you know. And that was the day when, I remember when there would be an election, they'd kid one another in that, and even school election that they'd say, well, we'll get you next time. They'd laugh and joke about it, you know, and could get along in that. Things have changed through the years.